Chapter 3042. This is the star-desolate region? Chu Yufei looked at the spiritual energy around her. She finally understood why her mother had risked her life to stay in the Chu family. The spiritual energy here was simply too barren. Although she already knew that the star-desolate region was a 9-star region, the degree of spiritual energy here was the lowest of the 9-star regions. If one cultivated here at the same level, wouldn't they need to spend several times more time than people from other star regions? There were even some higher levels and strengths that couldn't be raised here. This was because the spiritual energy here simply didn't meet the standards for advancement. Oh my god, this was just too terrifying. Chu Yufei's face paled. Thinking that after she was expelled from the Chu family, she might have to live with Bai Xing in this terrible and backward place, her pretty face lost all color. Mother, I don't want to live here anymore. I don't want to live here. She clung to Bai Xing's body, crying hysterically. You won't. This was the first time that Bai Xing had returned to the star-desolate region in so many years. She looked at the star region in front of her that lacked spiritual energy. Her eyes were cold and ruthless. When she left with Chu Tianyi and went to the heavenly wind region, she realized that the outside world was so vast and the life of the Chu family was so good. Let alone returning to the star-desolate region, even if she had to go to a star region that wasn't inferior to the heavenly wind region, she still wouldn't be satisfied. Why was she the one who had to leave? She had already stayed by the side of the Chu family and Chu Tianyi for so many years. She had enjoyed the benefits of the Chu family and the status of Madame Xing for so long. How could she be willing to leave? If she went elsewhere, would she have the status and benefits of the Chu family? What a joke. She would never leave. 20 years ago, she was the winner. Now, she would still be the winner. Yan Yang must die. Not only that, but anyone who knew about the matter between her and Yan Yang must die. Bai Xing's eyes were cold. After comforting Chu Yufei, she led the group towards the true Spill continent. At this time, in Star City, the Lu family had already received a report from a spy from the true Spill continent. Haha. Uncle Fong, there really are traces of sector beasts in the true Spill continent. Lu Yu was very pleased with himself. As he looked at the spy's report in his hands, a greedy and ambitious look appeared in his eyes. Sector beasts. Who would have thought that it was really on that small, low-level continent? Before this, Lu Yu and the rest of the Lu family thought that this was nonsense. He had only come here to investigate, and the result was that he discovered all sorts of strange things about the people of true Spill continent in the star-desolate territory. For some unknown reason, he was valued by the Star Alliance, and even the status of the people of true Spill continent rose. At this moment, he finally knew the reason. So it really was because of the sector beasts. Unfortunately, the method left behind by their family was only able to faintly detect whether or not there were traces of sector beasts within the true Spill continent. As for where the sector beasts were, and whether they had been captured or not, but he had no idea. However, judging from the attitude of the people from the Star Alliance towards the people from the true Spill continent, someone should have already obtained a sector beast. Chapter 3043. When Mo Zhuling had been taught a lesson by the people of true Spill continent, the Star Alliance's alliance master didn't even dare to say a word. It was obvious that he was afraid of something. Originally, he thought that it was Elder Fong's people who made him afraid. Now, it seemed that the internal conflict of the Star Alliance was because there was someone in true Spill continent that they didn't dare to offend. Because of Mo Zhuling, the Star Alliance's alliance master had already offended someone from true Spill continent. Therefore, he didn't have as much face as Elder Fong and the others in true Spill continent. The balance of power in the Star Alliance naturally tilted towards Elder Fong and the others. The more Lu Yu thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. Just as he was thinking this, Mo Zhuling's voice sounded from outside. Yu Lang. Mo Zhuling, because of the Lu family's support, had once again gained a firm foothold in the Star Alliance. Those people who had once said to the Star Alliance's alliance master that they wanted to expel her from the Star Alliance had all been ruthlessly beaten up by her in the name of the Lu family. Even the Star Alliance's alliance master didn't dare to openly oppose her, let alone put on airs in front of her. The more he had taught Imo Zhuling a lesson, the stronger the backlash would be. Their alliance master's people were all led by Imo Zhuling, and no one dared to disobey her. Imo Zhuling's heart was filled with pride, but at the same time, he was also very nervous. After all, her status in the Lu family wasn't completely clear. After the marriage proposal banquet, although she was known as Lu Yu's fiancée, Imo Zhuling knew that the Lu family didn't take her seriously. Lu Yu comforted her, saying that it would be good as long as they received news from True Spill Continent. At that time, he would send a letter to his family, saying that he wanted to marry her. At that time, he would come to marry her grandly. Imo Zhuling heard that news from True Spill Continent had arrived today, and immediately brought a group of people from the Alliance Master's side to visit. Hearing her voice, Lu Yu's eyes suddenly turned cold, and a trace of disgust flashed in them. At this time, Imo Zhuling had already brought a group of people into the room. Seeing Lu Yu, she immediately laughed. "Yu Lang, what made you so happy just now that made you smile so happily?" Imo Zhuling's heart was proud. She knew that the True Spill Continent wouldn't go wrong. Now that Lu Yu and the others had received the relevant information, they would definitely believe what he said, right? As she thought of this, she was so excited that she started to tremble. Not for anything else, but once she married into the Lu family, she could deal with Luo Qingtong and the others without fear. At that time, even if the True Spill Continent was destroyed and the people of the Star Alliance were implicated, so what? She could still live well in the Lu family. As long as she didn't let that terrifying man find out what she had done behind his back, the destruction of True Spill Continent wouldn't affect her at all. As Imo Zhuling thought of this, she smiled proudly in her heart. As she said that, the people from the Alliance Master's faction congratulated Lu Yu one after another. They didn't know why Lu Yu was so happy. However, it was right to follow Imo Zhuling's words. Speaking of which, Imo Zhuling was also strange today. He had called everyone over early in the morning, saying that he wanted to bring them to the Lu family's temporary residence to witness something. Chapter 3044. At the same time, some people were secretly guessing what was going on. Why was Lu Yu so happy? This was because when they were walking with Imo Zhuling, they had all heard Lu Yu's hearty laughter. They just hadn't heard what he said afterwards. Lu Yu's gaze was filled with mockery as he looked at the people from the Star Alliance's faction. There were even people from Elder Fang's faction amongst them. Lu Yu's heart was filled with even more mockery as he looked at them. He looked at Imo Zhuling. Seeing the joy and pride on her face, he knew what she was planning. This stupid woman, did she really think that he would immediately announce their marriage as soon as he obtained the news from True Spill Continent? This woman was simply too stupid. Moreover, she was stupid and vicious. He thought of how Imo Zhuling had been complaining in front of him about how the Lu family was disrespectful to her and how they looked down on her. Lu Yu's eyes were filled with mockery. Perhaps in front of Imo Zhuling, he was just a rich and foolish young master who could be easily fooled by her. Unfortunately, he didn't know who was the one being fooled. With this thought in mind, Lu Yu immediately flipped Imo Zhuling, who was sitting on his lap, over in front of all the flattering people. "You think you can call me Yu Lang? You have no sense of shame. You have no sense of seniority." Lu Yu's expression was cold. He looked at Imo Zhuling with disgust and disdain. He had been patient and perfunctory with this woman for so long. Now, he could finally vent his anger. Who did this woman think she was? If it weren't for the news from True Spill Continent and the fact that he didn't want to alert the enemy, would he have needed to deal with her for so long? She still wanted him to marry her? Based on her shameless and debauched body? He was already tired of playing with her. When his voice sounded, Imo Zhuling's face stiffened. She lay on the ground in disbelief, still in a daze. There was still a smile on her face. The smile on her lips was mixed with her incredulous gaze and half of her face was twitching. She looked like a ghost. She shouted in disbelief, "Lu Yu, what did you say?" Imo Zhuling was on the verge of breaking down. She looked at the cold-looking man in front of her. She could not believe that this was Lu Yu, who had always fulfilled her every request. What was going on? Why did the other party suddenly change his attitude? When her voice rang out, Lu Yu sneered and slowly stood up from his couch. He looked at the silent crowd and slowly approached Imo Zhuling. He grabbed her chin and lifted her head. He looked at her and said coldly, "What? Didn't you hear me clearly? Then I'll explain it again in detail. Imo Zhuling, who do you think you are? How dare you dream of becoming my wife? Do you know that even if you were to marry a slut like you to our family's dog, our Lu family would find you dirty?" Lu Yu sneered. He had had enough of Imo Zhuling. She didn't put him in her eyes just because she knew a little about medicine and prescriptions. Unfortunately, if it weren't for the secret of True Spill Continent, he wouldn't have feigned civility with her. If they wanted the prescriptions and medical skills in her hands, they could just capture her and imprison her. Chapter 30-45. What a joke. She actually thought that he was deeply in love with her and ordered him to propose to her at the wedding banquet. Originally, Lu Yu didn't want to be serious about it. It was just for fun. He was just trying to placate Imo Zhuling. But who would have thought that this woman would let his name and hers become infamous in the entire Star region because of her selfishness? Lu Yu wished he could snap Imo Zhuling's neck right there and then. He grabbed Imo Zhuling's neck and threw him out. Then, he ordered the people around him, throw them all out of the Lu residence. Also, find someone to watch him. Don't let him escape. Lu Yu wouldn't let Imo Zhuling off so easily. Didn't she flaunt her prowess during this period of time? Later, she would go to the Star Alliance and continue to flaunt her prowess. Anyway, with the people around him, Imo Zhuling wouldn't be able to escape from his hands. He would let him experience the consequences of flaunting his prowess during this period of time. After Lu Yu said that, Uncle Feng immediately called in the Lu family guards outside and threw Imo Zhuling and the others out. Needless to say, the people from the Star Alliance's faction were all on the same side. They came here in high spirits. They thought that Imo Zhuling would have a meteoric rise and that his marriage with the young master of the Lu family would be near. Who would have thought that this would happen? Everyone was stunned. They didn't come back to their senses until they were thrown out by the Lu family. Elder Feng's faction didn't want to come at all. But they were threatened by Imo Zhuling in the name of the Lu family, so they had no choice but to come. They were very nervous at first. Now that they saw the fate of Imo Zhuling and the people from the Star Alliance's faction, they were so happy that they were going crazy. What was the saying? The evils we bring on ourselves are the hardest to bear. Imo Zhuling and the others brought on themselves are the hardest to bear. They were wondering why young Master Lu Yu was so generous. He didn't even care that Imo Zhuling had ruined his reputation during the marriage proposal banquet. So they were waiting for Imo Zhuling. Lift her up high and throw her down. Everyone was overjoyed when they thought of this. They didn't wait for the people from the Lu family to arrive and hastily rushed out of the Lu family's residence to report this good news to the Star Alliance. Imo Zhuling, on the other hand, was dumbfounded when she was dragged out by the Lu clan. She struggled with all her might, telling the Lu clan that there was a super strong cultivator behind her. Her pill formulas and prescriptions all belonged to him. The Lu family could not treat her like this. Otherwise, he would definitely suffer the other party's revenge. Imo Zhuling could no longer care about anything else. She couldn't be sent back to the Star Alliance. She couldn't be abandoned by the Lu family. Otherwise, based on what she had done in the Star Alliance, even if Elder Feng and the others didn't do anything, just her father's faction and the people from the Star Alliance's faction were enough to torture her to death. She didn't want to fall into such a miserable situation. However, the Lu family's people snorted at her words. The Lu family's guards who were dragging her sneered and said, "Imo Zhuling, Miss Imo, you should stop struggling. Our young master has heard too many of your lies. Moreover, if you really have that super strong cultivator by your side, why don't you let her do it? If she did, you wouldn't have fallen into such a situation where you were almost deserted by everyone, right?" Chapter 3046. The group of Lu family guards sneered. Mo Zhuling's face was ashen. He couldn't refute. Because she really couldn't summon black fog at this time. Therefore, Lu Yu had been feigning civility with her for so long in order to determine whether or not there was anyone behind her. He wasn't sincere to her at all. His talk about going to True Spill Continent to find out the truth was just an excuse. To think that she actually believed it to be true. As Mo Zhuling thought this, he felt as if his face had been slapped hundreds or thousands of times. She was dragged out of the mansion by the Lu family people and thrown outside the gate. Because of the Lu family's strength and the fact that Mo Zhuling had screwed them over, the Star Alliance's Alliance Masters faction didn't even bother with her. They left on their own. Mo Zhuling lay on the ground. He tried to get up several times, but he fell back down every time. Because she had struggled with all her might in the Lu family, she had suffered heavy injuries. The Lu family guards didn't have the slightest bit of pity for her. Seeing her resist, they immediately suppressed her. At this moment, Mo Zhuling's entire body was soft. As she tried to get up and fall back down, Yuan Hu and Su Xiaoxiao also passed by. Mo Zhuling had asked people to lead them here. He wanted them to see her being respectfully welcomed by the Lu family people. At the same time, he wanted them to know that she would soon be given a grand wedding by the Lu family people. However, things didn't go as planned. The scene she wanted Yuan Hu and the others to see didn't happen. Instead, they saw her at her most unbearable state. Mo Zhuling's entire body was covered in mud and dust. His clothes were also worn and tattered. One could vaguely see his sparkling skin underneath. The hairpin on her head had long since fallen off. Her black hair draped over her body. She looked like a crazy beggar. This wasn't just unbearable and abject, it was simply tragic to the extreme. Su Xiaoxiao and Yuan Hu didn't expect to meet Mo Zhuling here and see her in such a miserable state. Wasn't this woman very arrogant recently? It was said that the Lu family didn't blame her at all and even supported her. Elder Fong and the others had been taught a lesson by her several times. Su Xiaoxiao and Yuan Hu were on high alert at all times to prevent this woman from causing trouble again. He didn't expect her to become like this. Tisk, that's why, instead of relying on the heavens and earth, it's better to rely on yourself. Yuan Hu said coldly as he glanced at Mo Zhuling. How could the other party compare to their boss in this state? What a joke. Even if Ming Zun was blind, he wouldn't take a fancy to her, okay? You only know how to rely on others. Now, you've finally been kicked out of the door, right? Serves her right for being so arrogant. The crowd simply couldn't be bothered with her and walked straight to her side. However, Mo Zhuling's heart was filled with hatred. After being treated like this by Lu Yu, Su Xiaoxiao, Yuan Hu, and the others saw such an unbearable side of her. The blood in her heart kept surging up. Finally, with a puff, she spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted in front of the crowd of onlookers. At this moment, in the Dongting region, Luo Qingtong immediately prepared to leave after solving the problem of the evil blood bracelet. Chapter 3047. Little Seven, you're leaving. His large strides were as if he were flying. In the past, he had to take a few steps to catch his breath, needing someone to support him at all times. But now, his figure was strong and his steps were steady, like the wind. In an instant, his figure was a step faster than Sui Yu and the others, and he directly appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. As Luo Qingtong saw Ji Feiyu and the others arrive, she smiled and said, "It's all right, there's no need to see me off. You're busy here. Once you're done, you're welcome to visit the True Spill Continent as a guest." Luo Qingtong's face was all smiles. Today, Ji Feiyu was the true ruler of the East Pavilion region. In the lower three regions, there was no such thing as a region master. This was because in these three-star regions, the high-level powerhouses were all about the same in strength. Basically, there had never been a powerhouse like Ji Feiyu, whose strength could completely crush others. Thus, There was no such thing as a family completely crushing other families and dominating a star region. But now, with Luo Qingtong's help, Ji Feiyu was the true ruler of the East Pavilion region, and also the true region master. The reason Luo Qingtong invited him to visit the True Spill Continent as a guest was naturally so that the True Spill Continent, Grandfather Luo, and the others could have an ally like him. Like this, she would feel much more at ease in the future. After all, even if the True Spill Continent was connected to Xiao Tuanzi's world in the future, Luo Qingtong couldn't always be preparing to return to the True Spill Continent, right? Luo Qingtong would help them plan out the strength and allies that they should have. She would ensure that Grandfather Luo and the others would be safe in the True Spill Continent. As Luo Qingtong spoke, Ji Feiyu silently nodded. He had originally planned to do so. If it weren't for him suddenly changing his mind, he would have gone to the True Spill Continent to settle down there. But thinking that the strength of the 6th level of the human martial realm was not enough, and that strength alone might not be able to help Luo Qingtong, he decided to accept the strength of the family Ji and the Yuan family. Now that Luo Qingtong said so, it was exactly what he wanted. When he nodded, Sueyu and the others had already rushed over. Seeing that Luo Qingtong was really going to leave, they immediately started talking at once. "Little Seven, you're leaving? Why don't we go back with you?" "Yes, our strength has also increased. Young master doesn't need us to serve him anymore. Why don't we go back with you? This way, I can take care of you and the people around you." "That's right, Mo Zhuling has the support of the Lu family. Who knows what they will do to you? Take us with you." Sueyu and the others were already close to the 9th level of the Amethyst Elder. Otherwise, they wouldn't have dared to go against Qin Xiong. Now that Ji Feiyu's strength had increased, he proposed a solution according to the cultivation barrier they had been facing. With this, everyone's strength had increased. This was also because Ji Feiyu had been watching them cultivate. He was clearer than anyone else about their physical condition and cultivation progress. If it were someone else, he definitely wouldn't have been able to do this. When Sueyu and the others spoke, Luo Qingtong's heart was slightly moved. Sueyu and the others' proposal was indeed very good. With them by her side, Luo Qingtong could be more at ease. Chapter 3048. The family Nangong master's voice rang out. "Miss Xiao Qi, our family Nangong has a few good men. You can bring them along with you." The people that the family Nangong master had prepared were all his direct descendants. He had done so to show his loyalty to Luo Qingtong. These direct descendants were by Luo Qingtong's side to gain experience and also as hostages so that Luo Qingtong could be at ease with them. At the same time, who was Luo Qingtong? She was young Master Xiao Qi. These family Nangong people were by her side. There were only benefits and no disadvantages. Seeing that Luo Qingtong did not have many people by her side, the family Nangong master was naturally eager to send his family members to Luo Qingtong's side so that they could seize the opportunity to succeed her. It should be known that once Luo Qingtong and the master of the palace met, perhaps in the future, the family Nangong people would not even have the opportunity to do odd jobs by Luo Qingtong's side. When Luo Qingtong heard his words, she immediately looked at him with a faint smile. She had already seen through his plan. However, Luo Qingtong did not reject the family Nangong master's scheming methods. She had previously said that she liked smart people. Especially smart people who knew when to advance and when to retreat. They knew what to do and what not to do. They knew what to hold on to and what not to hold on to. The family Nangong master did not think that he was smart enough to have any ideas about her. Instead, he chose to send his family Nangong people to her side to gain experience and show their loyalty. Naturally, Luo Qingtong would not reject him. To be honest, she had only accepted the family Nangong people on a whim. She did not care too much about them. However, at this moment, through the actions of the family Nangong master, they were completely tied to her. As long as the family Nangong people were loyal, she naturally would not treat them badly. The family Nangong master had a very long-term vision. No wonder when Nangong Yenyu was the #1 genius of the family Nangong, even after she went crazy and became blind, the family Nangong still stood tall. When Luo Qingtong came to the East Pavilion region, the family Nangong was still one of the top families in the East Pavilion region. There was nothing wrong with such a person under her command. After all, he knew what he was doing and his ability was good. If your family Nangong people have anything you want to send, you can send them to True Spill Continent in the future. Luo Qingtong said. As soon as she said that, she had already completely acknowledged the Nangong clan as one of them, and was willing to continue accepting the disciples of the Nangong clan. When Nangong family head heard Luo Qingtong's words, he couldn't help but tremble violently. He deeply understood the difference between his own people and ordinary subordinates. When he saw that he and the others had received Luo Qingtong's approval, he was so excited that he almost fainted. Okay. The family Nangong master's voice trembled as he hurriedly agreed. The family Nangong people looked at him frequently. Even Sueyu and the others felt very strange. Even if Little Seven was very strong and capable, wasn't the family Nangong master too excited? Could there be some unknown identity behind Little Seven? But she was indeed a person from the Star Wilderness region's True Spill Continent? Everyone was confused. They clearly knew Luo Qingtong's origin, so they could not understand the family Nangong master's excitement. Chapter 3049. Ji Feiyu had a complicated look in his eyes. He looked at Luo Qingtong and was sure that there must be some force behind Luo Qingtong. The identity of the Star Wilderness region and the True Spill Continent was probably one of Luo Qingtong's identities. He thought of the first time he and others met Luo Qingtong. The girl was full of mystery. He didn't think too much about it at that time. However, now that he thought about it, the so-called treasure that caused Qin Xiong and the others to search for it at all costs and even disobey his orders was probably the phenomenon created by Luo Qingtong, right? Little Seven, who are you? Ji Feiyu originally thought that after he obtained the Dongting region, he might be able to help Luo Qingtong a little. But now it seemed that this was far from enough. While they were chatting with Luo Qingtong, somewhere in the starry sky thousands of miles away from the Dongting region, an extremely grand and majestic palace was located in the middle of it. Yi Qianxian sat on the throne in the main hall. Have they all been eliminated? He looked at Bei Qing and Feng Yu beside him. The two nodded quickly and said, yes, they have all been eliminated. Master, our internal affairs have been infiltrated by the people of the major forces. Nearly 80% of the people who responded to your summons have been bribed. Humph, they have been free for too long. Naturally, they are not willing to come back and obey my orders. Not to mention that my identity has been exposed. I am a half-cripple who will not live for long. Yi Qianxian snorted coldly. He had guessed this long ago. When he decided to dissolve the Dark Nether Palace, he knew that there would inevitably be people who would be disloyal in the future. But he didn't think that he could continue to live, so he didn't care. If these people had the ability to unify the Dark Nether Palace and even rely on the capital of the Dark Nether Palace to live a better life in other places, it would be their good fortune. But now that he had met Luo Qingtong, he changed his mind and didn't want to die. Everything that these people had obtained and the rights that he had bestowed upon them naturally had to be returned. If there were any who were disloyal, then kill them all. If not for that, Yi Qianxian would not have stayed in the Onyx Palace for so long. As for the rest of them, if they don't have any other intentions, just pull them out. It doesn't matter if they are weak. They can use all the resources. Yi Qianxian's expression was indifferent. The Onyx Palace naturally had excellent resources and could arrange for them to train and improve. They would not lose out to any royal family, nobles, or the disciples of major forces. Yi Qianxian had originally planned to wait until Luo Qingtong's strength had risen and she was able to leave the True Spill Continent and the Star Wilderness. Once she was able to wander through the Star Field, he would bring her to Black Nether Palace and raise her. But the result was that man proposes but the heavens disposes. Luo Qingtong's strength had risen quickly, but before she could leave the True Spill Continent, she had been sent to the Skywind region by Song Cheng. Afterwards, she had met the avatar of the Sky Capital Emperor on the abandoned continent. Now, his identity as the master of the Onyx Palace had been exposed. There was no way for him to bring Luo Qingtong to the Onyx Palace and use the resources of the Onyx Palace to raise her. Because of this, the people of Sky Capital would inevitably keep a close eye on the people of Onyx Palace and tamper with Luo Qingtong's training. Thus, not only would Luo Qingtong not be able to rapidly increase her strength, but because of the intervention of the people of Sky Capital, she would face even more dangers. Chapter 30-50. Thinking of how Luo Qingtong had directly risen to the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm in the abandoned continent, and even obtained the Evil Blood Bracelet and the Heaven and Earth Tyrant Fist. The corners of Yi Qianxian's lips curled upwards, an indescribable sense of pride in his heart, and even the ice in his eyes melted a lot. Let those people of Tiandu continue to look down on his pearl. When the young girl blooms, they will know how ignorant and stupid they were. And Yi Qianxian was looking forward to the arrival of that day. Send someone to pass on a message to the people of Tiandu, tell them not to have any unrealistic delusions. Luo Qingtong will only be my one and only wife in this life. What concubine, let them all die. Otherwise, I don't mind sending them to their deaths. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. After his identity as the master of the Underworld Palace was exposed, several waves of people came to Tiandu, all telling him not to be angry with the Emperor of Tiandu, and to lower his head. They said that they could accept Luo Qingtong's identity, but she could not be the official wife. At the same time, Yi Qianxian also needed to accept their designated official wife candidate. It was simply laughable. The person that he held in his hand, loved like a treasure, and doted on like his life spirit, actually needed them to accept her in order to be with him? They even used his lifespan as an excuse, saying that he would not live for long. What would Luo Qingtong do in the future? In Tiandu, she had no one to rely on. If Yi Qianxian was too tough, Luo Qingtong would inevitably suffer in the future. Did the woman he fell in love with need him to compromise in order to be with her? Did she need him to rely on in order to be able to stay by his side openly? Yi Qianxian only felt that it was absurd. These people looked down on Luo Qingtong because they did not know how their emperor, the clone of the Emperor of Tiandu, was stopped by Luo Qingtong with a single punch. The woman he fell in love with, in this world, across the wilderness, across the 9 heavens, there was no one who could compare to her. Only he and the people around her could understand her beauty and brilliance. What were the people of Tiandu? Sooner or later, they would be slapped in the face by him. Yi Qianxian beat back all the people who came to persuade him. If it wasn't for the fact that he was purging the people inside the Onyx Palace and couldn't find the time, he would have killed them all. Let the people of Tiandu see the end of those who dared to despise Luo Qingtong in front of him. His woman would naturally be protected by him, and no one else could say a word. When Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others heard his words, they immediately agreed. During this period of time, they were indeed exhausted from dealing with those people from Tiandu. Luckily, Master had the foresight to send people to contact the people of Black Nether Palace when he was in the true Spill Continent. Those people did not know that Master was the dying young Emperor of Tiandu, so they did not dare to disobey Master's orders. By the time they found out, it was already too late. Master had been treated by the evil doctor, and his strength had been restored to half of his peak. He could easily kill them. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were sincerely grateful to Luo Qingtong. Without her, they feared that Yi Qianxian, with his heroic and unparalleled strength, would have been betrayed and imprisoned, living a life without dignity. After all, the Emperor of Tiandu and the others had coveted Master's talent for a long time. With Master's heavenly vein body nearing its end, they had become increasingly unscrupulous. Chapter 30-51. He wondered what kind of expression the people in Tiandu would have if they knew that Master's heavenly veins body could be saved and he would not have to die in the future. After all, they had been hoping that Master's heavenly veins body would fail and he would die immediately since the day he was born. Even the Emperor was the same. It was ridiculous to say it. The other party and Master were father and son, but they had never had the slightest bit of father-son affection. In fact, the emperor was extremely afraid of Master. If he didn't know that Master had the heavenly veins body and would not live for long, he would have killed Master long ago. The people in Tiandu looked down on Luo Qingtong, but they didn't know that she was the key to Yi Qianxian's salvation and survival. When they came to their senses, they would regret their belittling of Luo Qingtong. While Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were thinking about this, Yi Qianxian had already gotten up and was ready to leave. He had stayed in the Black Nether Palace for long enough. If it wasn't for dealing with the people in Tiandu and cleaning up the Black Nether Palace, he would have left to find Luo Qingtong long ago. Now that things had come to an end, he naturally wouldn't stay here any longer. He had endured long enough and couldn't be separated from Luo Qingtong anymore. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were also prepared to leave with him. But Yi Qianxian wasn't going to take them with him. Firstly, they still needed to preside over the overall situation in the Black Nether Palace. Secondly, without them, the people in Tiandu would definitely guess where he had gone. At that time, the Emperor of Tiandu would act recklessly and everything he had done for Luo Qingtong during this period would be in vain. Yi Qianxian had to let them think that he was still here so that they wouldn't dare to act rashly. The most important thing was that Luo Qingtong had been playing tricks on him all this while, and he had no way to deal with her. Why did he tell her that he had gone over this time? Not letting her know was the right thing to do. Bei Qing and Feng Yu were too big of a target if they followed him. If they were not careful, they would be discovered by her. As Yi Qianren thought of this, she snorted coldly and went on her way alone. Before he left, he even deliberately concealed his appearance and identity. Or rather, he had changed his appearance and identity. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others watched as their master left with a new look. They were suddenly speechless. Master and the evil doctor were really, she didn't know if they were a match made in heaven or a natural nemesis. His master, who was usually calm, steady, and dignified, would always become especially childish and petty when he met an evil doctor. How could he be so calculative over such a matter and even want to get back at the evil doctor? Seriously, the temperament of a child. However, as Yi Qianxian's close subordinates who had watched over him all this time, they were also very happy that Yi Qianxian had gained popularity. In the past, their mistress was perfect in every way. She was extraordinarily talented and powerful. Her intelligence and willpower were also first class. Although such a mistress made them look up to her, they couldn't feel a trace of her existence. Yi Qianxian didn't have any special attachment to her life. Since she was young, she only wanted to do her best. She looked like a living fake statue. Like an immortal who was placed on the altar. After meeting Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianxian became completely alive. Chapter 3052. Everyone had smiles on their faces as they watched Yi Qianren leave. Looking at his departing back, Feng Yu ordered everyone around, strictly seal off any news of Master. Don't let the news that he has left Black Nether Palace spread. The people of Heaven Capital were afraid of Master at this moment. If they knew that Master was not in the palace, they would definitely take the opportunity to attack. At the same time, the sealed passages from Heaven Capital to True Spill Continent would also be broken. Feng Yu had to be on guard. Understood. Everyone responded. At this moment, an anxious voice sounded from outside. Oh my God, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, come out quickly. Hearing this voice, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were stunned for a moment. Then, they hurried to greet a figure outside Black Nether Palace. Elder Yu, why are you here? Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others had strange expressions. They looked at Elder Yu, who was running out in a hurry. Because his steps were too messy, he almost tripped on the doorstep. Didn't he return to Miracle Medical Valley? Why did he come back? Speaking of Elder Yu, it had to be mentioned that he had accidentally let the people of Tiandu know about Luo Qingtong's existence due to a momentary mistake. Because of his guilty conscience, Elder Yu returned to Miracle Medical Valley after he was unable to find a way to heal Yi Qianxian's heavenly pulse body. There was no other way. His strength was limited. It was better to let the people of Miracle Medical Valley help him think of a way. The main reason was that he had obtained a trace of inspiration from Luo Qingtong. But there were some things that he could not think of, so he had not made any progress. A few days ago, he had researched a pill that could let Yi Qianxian use his strength without worrying about the strength of his meridians decreasing. This could reduce the burden on Yi Qianxian's meridians as much as possible, so that he would not be too restricted when Luo Qingtong was not around. It was also after Yi Qianxian obtained the pill that he decided to wipe out all the people inside Black Nether Palace. Otherwise, according to Yi Qianxian's meridians, he would have to spend at least half a year to wipe out all those people. And the plan that would have to be arranged was very troublesome. How could it be like now, directly killing them and then looking for Luo Qingtong? Hearing Bei Qing and Feng Yu's questions, Elder Yu's face turned gloomy. He hurriedly asked, "Master, where's your master? Tell him to take out the medicine he took from me earlier. He can't eat that." Elder said as he stamped his feet. Ah! Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were shocked. They immediately asked him, "What's going on?" Said Elder. "Why can't he eat that medicine?" Their master had not only did he eat its master, he had used master medicine. Could it be that the pill had been replaced by someone else, or that there was something wrong with it? Bei Qing, Elder Yu, and the others thought, and suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. Feng Yu kept Elder Yu here and asked him about the situation. At the same time, she asked Bei Qing to lead people to chase after Yi Qianxian. However, after knowing that he could leave to look for Luo Qingtong, the man's figure flew quickly. No one knew where he was now. Because he did not want to attract the attention of the people in Tiandu, Yi Qianxian did not even release Qing Tian. He was completely flying with his physical body. Chapter 3053. While everyone was feeling anxious, Elder Yuelao was also a little dumbfounded by the scene in front of him. "Are you kidding me? Your master has already taken the medicine?" He said in disbelief. "Oh my God, we're done for. Where did he go now?" "There's nothing wrong with the effect of the medicine. It's just that when I was refining the medicine, I made a mistake and added an extra dose of the medicine, causing a little side effect after taking the medicine." As Elder Yuelao said this, he felt guilty. "As soon as I found out, I hurried over to find your master. Why can't he keep his cool? Besides, why did he run around after taking the medicine? Can't he just stay in the Black Nether Palace?" When Elder Yuelao rushed over, he still had a fantasy in his heart, thinking that perhaps Yi Qianxian hadn't had time to take the medicine. Or maybe it didn't matter if he really took it. There was nothing wrong with the medicine, but there were some side effects. The side effects were not a problem at all in the Black Nether Palace. Anyway, no one could hurt Yi Qianxian. But he didn't expect that the boy not only took the medicine, but also ran away. He was done for. While he was feeling dizzy, Bei Qing and Feng Yu were relieved when they heard that there was nothing wrong with the effect of the medicine. After all, their master had already taken the medicine, and he had done it a few days ago. If there was really a problem, their master would be in trouble when he went out now. However, there was a little side effect. What side effect? Bei Qing and Feng Yu looked at Elder Yuelao suspiciously and asked, "Elder Yuelao, what kind of side effect is it?" It was not that they doubted Elder Yuelao, but this old urchin's character was really bad. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others felt that his little description was not as simple as he said. "Ha, nothing, it's just," Elder Yuelao laughed dryly, leaned in front of Bei Qing and Feng Yu, and whispered a few words in their ears. In an instant, their eyes bulged out of their sockets. You. They raised their hands and pointed at Elder Yuelao. The latter quickly raised her hand and slapped away their raised fingers. She said hurriedly, Hey, I what? Don't worry, the after effects will only appear when little Yi goes all out and exhausts all of his strength. Looking at the two of you, Brett Yi must have gone to see Last Tong, right? In the 9-star region, how could something like this happen that would exhaust his strength? Elder Yu vowed solemnly. He had panicked just now. After thinking about it, Yi Qianxian wasn't in the Onyx Palace. But according to his understanding of the other party, he was not here. Most likely, he had gone to look for Luo Qingtong. As a result, he calmed down. As long as Yi Qianxian didn't face people like Tiandu Di, and the others, he wouldn't run out of strength. The after-effects were as good as none. My mother. Next time, I won't allow those little bastards from the godly medical valley to stroll around in my cave. They were simply going to die if they touched the amount of medicinal liquid in my cave. While Elder Yuelao was fuming with anger, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others also calmed down a little. Elder Yuelao was right. In the 9-star region, there shouldn't be anything that would exhaust their master's strength. As long as they hid their master's whereabouts well, it would be fine. Chapter 3054. At this time, in the star-desolate region, near the true Spill continent, Bai Xing and the others appeared. Madam. A group of Chu family guards looked at the true Spill continent in front of them. They frowned and said to Bai Xing, "There seems to be something wrong with that low-level continent." With their eyesight, they could naturally see that there were many powerhouses hidden in the vicinity of the true Spill continent. They didn't place these people's strength in their eyes. But with so many people guarding this place, it was obvious that they weren't powerhouses that a low-level continent should have. They couldn't help but feel a bit nervous. It had to be known that their actions in coming to the true Spill continent were completely hidden from the Chu family. If today's matters were to spread out, then they would all die. Not to mention anything else, just Chu Tianyi wouldn't let them go. This was because this was the place where the woman he loved the most was. This was also the homeland of the young master. Everyone was still very timid in their hearts. They didn't dare to act rashly. Hearing their words, Bai Xing's eyes narrowed. She looked at the true Spill continent in front of her. Although she didn't think that there was anything wrong with such a low-level continent, these Chu family guards were just like the Chu family guards. However, these guards of the Chu clan were on the same boat as her. There was no reason for them to lie to her. Thus, there must be something wrong with the true Spill continent. Let's go. We'll go to the Star Alliance first. Since there was something strange about the true Spill continent, they couldn't force their way in. Compared to these guards, Bai Xing and Chu Yufei were more worried that this matter would be exposed. If that happened, the two of them would no longer be able to stay in the Chu family. Thus, after she realized that something was wrong, she immediately turned around and headed to the Star Alliance. She wanted to inquire about the true Spill continent before doing anything else. After arriving at Star City, she learned that the true Spill continent had already been protected by the Star Alliance. Not only that, but that slut Hu Yennyang and those people from the true Spill continent had a very high status in the Star Alliance. They were protected by the Star Alliance. Damn it. Bai Xing's complexion was ugly. She didn't expect that Hu Yennyang and the others would have such a great fortune. The true Spill continent was only a low-level continent. When she and Chu Tianyi left this place, no one knew of this continent. Even if he mentioned it to others, they would have the same contemptuous expression on their faces. He didn't think that after so many years, the true Spill continent would become famous in the Star Wilderness. Not only that, even Hu Yennyang and the others benefited from it. In that case, how was she going to deal with Hu Yennyang and the others? She didn't care about the others, but Hu Yennyang, her family and everyone else in the far west wilderness who knew about her past with them must die. Otherwise, how could she be at ease? But at this time, true Spill continent and Hu Yennyang were being protected by the people of the Star Alliance. If she forcefully killed him, she was afraid that it would immediately attract the attention of the Star Alliance. At that time, unless everyone in the Star Desolate region was annihilated, it would be impossible to cover up this matter. And once the Chu family found out about this, she would be finished. As Bai Xing thought this, her heart was suddenly filled with hatred. At this time, she heard the conversation of the people around her. "Hey, did you guys hear? The young miss was driven out by the Lu family. Haha. This is so funny." Chapter 3055. Didn't you say that family G young master was a good man? He was handsome, strong, and had been engaged to her since they were young. But after she climbed up to the Lu family, she immediately turned her back on him. She deliberately humiliated him at the marriage proposal banquet, and even spread the word that he was a waste. Finally, she was slapped in the face. Now, he has been kicked out by the Lu clan. This is the consequence of being greedy. That's right. I heard that the Lu family had received some good news. The young miss thought that they were going to discuss her marriage with the Lu family's young master. She hurriedly brought the people from the Star Alliance over, but they were all thrown out. Oh, my God. You didn't see that scene. It was really shameful. Now, the whole street is talking about her and the Lu family. The people from the Star Alliance's faction don't even dare to go out. A group of people hurriedly walked past Bai Xing and the others, talking about Imo Zhuling. A few days ago, he was thrown out of the Lu family's gate. The news had already spread throughout Star City. If it weren't for the fact that the Lu family was involved in this matter, the news would have spread throughout the entire Star Desolate domain. Imo Zhuling had done one disgraceful thing after another. Everyone was used to talking about her after dinner. The people from the Star Alliance's faction were too lazy to care about her. They simply didn't forbid the news from spreading. After hearing these words, Bai Xing's eyes narrowed. Young miss? Star Alliance's young miss? On the way to Star City, Bai Xing also heard a lot about Imo Zhuling. But at that time, she was too lazy to pay attention to it. She was only focused on the true Spill continent. Now that she heard his words, her mind started to work. The people of the true Spill continent were being protected by the people from the Star Alliance. She definitely couldn't make any more moves. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if the Chu clan found out about it. However, just because she couldn't make a move didn't mean that others couldn't. Especially since this young lady of the Star Alliance was a member of the Star Alliance. Her status was high enough. With that thought in mind, Bai Xing immediately sent someone to inquire about Imo Zhuling. Soon, the results of the investigation were presented to her. Bai Xing was even happier when she found out that it was related to Imo Zhuling. I didn't think that this Imo Zhuling would have a grudge with someone from the true Spill continent. Very good. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. She was really sleepy when someone handed her a pillow. She originally wanted to move against those from the true Spill continent, but she never thought that the person she found would also have a grudge against those from the true Spill continent. If that was the case, it would be perfect. Arrange for it immediately. I want to meet Imo Zhuling. Bai Xing was very pleased with herself. According to Imo Zhuling's current situation and the degree of hatred he had towards the people of the true Spill continent, he would definitely agree to cooperate with her. At that time, they would be able to quietly eliminate those people from the true Spill continent. Who would know that it was them? As Bai Xing thought this, she suddenly laughed in her heart. On the other side, as Chu Yufei looked at the name Luo Qingtong, she didn't know why, but the name Luo Xiaoqi suddenly flashed through her mind. This Luo Qingtong was the same as Chu Lingfeng. They both came from the true Spill continent. Could she be that Luo Xiaoqi? Chapter 3056. Because a man and a woman, how could they be the same person? What's more, although Luo Qingtong and Luo Xiaoqi both had the surname Luo. But one was doing well in the Heavenly Wind region, and the other was a lowly person in a low-level star region. Between the two, there was no similarity at all. Even if it was a woman dressed as a man, it was impossible. As Chu Yufei thought of this, she immediately threw this matter to the back of her mind. Instead, she looked forward to the beautiful life in the future. After getting rid of those people in the true Spill continent, she and her mother would no longer need to worry about their identity and status in the Chu family. As for Chu Lingfeng, that big fool, with her mother's identity as the patriarch savior, even if he didn't like them, he wouldn't be able to do anything to them. As she thought of this, she smiled smugly. While the two were thinking this, on the other side, Luo Qingtong had also returned to the Star Wilderness. Seeing the spiritual energy in front of them become thinner, Yin Yang looked at Luo Qingtong and asked, Master, are we going directly back to the true Spill continent? Do you want to go back to Star City to take a look? No need. Luo Qingtong thought for a moment and shook her head. There's nothing going on in Star City. When the time comes, you can send a message to Xiao Xiao and the others. Tell them that we're back. Elder Fong and the others were on the Star Alliance's side, and the Dark Arena had been handed over to them to take care of. With their strength, they were not inferior to the Star Alliance's Alliance Master. Sooner or later, the Star Alliance's side would be Luo Qingtong's. As for Mo Zhuling and the Lu family, after Luo Qingtong finished the matters in the true Spill continent, she would deal with them. Yen Yang nodded. At this time, Luo Qingtong turned to look at Chu Tianyi and asked, How is it? Your injury? After returning to the true Spill continent, Luo Qingtong would begin to raise the level of the true Spill continent as well as connect it to the Tuanzi's world. Chu Tianyi was the most important part, so he couldn't afford to make any mistakes here. It's all right. Chu Tianyi's voice was concise. Hearing this, Yen Yang immediately gave him a cold snort. Who was the one who was crying out in pain in front of her, looking like he was about to die? Yen Yang was so angry that she clenched her teeth when she thought about how she had cried for a long time while looking at his injuries and how he had held her in his arms to comfort her. This bastard, why didn't he just die from the pain? Yen Yang felt that she should not have any sympathy for the other party. Why did she give him the medicine that her master gave her? In the end, this man didn't use it at all. He even hid the medicine and said that it was a token of love from her. How shameless could he be? While Yen Yang was gritting her teeth in anger, Chu Tianyi was also very depressed. If he could, he didn't want to expose his injury. In fact, it was nothing serious. However, Luo Qingtong's medical skills were amazing. If he lied, she would definitely see through it. Chu Tianyi could only tell the truth. Otherwise, he would have pretended for a few more days. Yen Yang's thoughtfulness and gentleness were really rare. Unfortunately, all of his lies were exposed this time. Let me see. Luo Qingtong was still not relieved. Chu Tianyi's strength couldn't be damaged too much. Otherwise, when the core of the true Spill continent and the core of the abandoned continent merged, it would fail. Luo Qingtong didn't know what the result would be. Not to mention that if the true Spill continent couldn't be upgraded, then her idea of connecting it with the Tuanzi's world would be in vain. Chapter 3057. Lin Mengya didn't seem to mind. She stretched out her hand. Luo Qingtong pressed Chu Tianyi's wrist. After checking for a while, she suddenly looked at him. There's something wrong with your injuries. Luo Qingtong couldn't describe that strange feeling. Chu Tianyi's injuries were no longer that serious. Previously, he had been burned by the Demon King's attack. His injuries seemed to be much more serious than this. Not only that, the strength in his body had recovered very well. From the looks of it, there was nothing wrong with this. But for some reason, after Luo Qingtong pressed Chu Tianyi's pulse, she felt that something was wrong. Hearing her words, Yen Yang, who had been glaring at Chu Tianyi, was stunned. Chu Tianyi was also clearly taken aback. There was something wrong with his injuries? But all this time, his injuries had been recovering in this way. And this time, the Demon King's power had a corrosive effect. Therefore, his internal injuries healed more slowly. If it had been any other time, his injuries would have healed long ago. As Chu Tianyi thought of this, he subconsciously glanced at Yen Yang. Could it be that Luo Qingtong saw the conflict between him and Yen Yang, so she deliberately pushed him and said that there was something wrong with his injuries so that Yen Yang wouldn't be so angry with him? As Chu Tianyi thought of this, he suddenly felt that selling himself to Luo Qingtong was a good choice. At least she knew to speak up for him at the crucial moment. As he cast a grateful glance at Luo Qingtong, Yen Yang, who was on the other side, was also a little hesitant. Although she felt that Luo Qingtong wouldn't deliberately say that there was something wrong with Chu Tianyi's injuries in order to help Chu Tianyi, everything was too coincidental. She was so angry with Chu Tianyi, but Luo Qingtong said that there was something wrong with Chu Tianyi's injury. Thinking about it, she suddenly frowned and asked Luo Qingtong, "Master, what's wrong with his injury?" "I don't know." Luo Qingtong frowned slightly and said frankly, "My blood pupil hasn't recovered yet. I can't see it for the time being." Luo Qingtong could only vaguely see that there was something wrong with Chu Tianyi's injury, but she couldn't find out what the problem was. The main reason was that Chu Tianyi had a special physique, and the Yin Demon King's baleful Yin Qi wasn't an ordinary power. Therefore, when the two were mixed together, Luo Qingtong couldn't come to a conclusion. Fortunately, her blood-red eyes were about to recover. Once he returned to the true Spill continent, he would be able to rest for a while. Luo Qingtong always felt that the exhaustion of her blood-red eyes was a bit strange. In the past, every time her power was exhausted, it would quickly recover. Why was it so slow this time? Was it because she had lent too much power to Ji Feiyu this time? Luo Qingtong didn't use this eye technique much in her previous life, so she wasn't sure if this was the reason. But it didn't matter. Anyway, it would recover soon. Thinking this, she didn't care too much about it. She only told Chu Tianyi that she would wait until they returned to the true Spill continent to let him have a look. Luo Qingtong's original intention was to wait until they returned to the true Spill continent and then use her blood-red eyes to let him have a look. Chu Tianyi misunderstood Luo Qingtong's meaning. He thought that she was really looking for a reason to stall for time so that Yen Yang would calm down. Suddenly, he looked at her with even more gratitude. Yen Yang's master was really good. Chapter 3058. When Yen Yang saw his exaggerated performance, the little bit of doubt and worry she had disappeared. She hated that she couldn't raise her hand and beat him up. However, she also misunderstood Luo Qingtong's intentions. She thought that the other party didn't want her and Chu Tianyi to become too stiff. Therefore, even though she was full of anger, she didn't do anything. When Chu Tianyi saw her reaction, he thought that Luo Qingtong's words had worked. He immediately put on an even more pitiful act. The group of people made a ruckus as they rushed towards the true Spill continent. At this time, in the Star Alliance, Mo Zhuling stayed in her room. She felt that there was nothing left to live for. She sat on her bed in a daze. Her clothes were messy and her hair was disheveled. It seemed that she hadn't washed for more than 10 days. The room was a complete mess. She didn't know how long it had been since the room was cleaned. On the table, there was some food scattered around. It already emitted a disgusting stench. Mo Zhuling had stayed in this room for who knows how many days. Ever since she was driven out of the mansion by the Lu family and thrown back to the courtyard of the Star Alliance, she had been living a life worse than death in this room. Those people from the Star Alliance's Alliance Masters faction, who had been turned upside down by her, hated that they couldn't eat her blood and dig out her flesh. Mo Zhuling had been so arrogant before. Now that she was abandoned by the Lu family, the backlash was even more severe. Everyone was trying their best to hit her when she was down. Mo Zhuling, the young miss of the Star Alliance, was living a life worse than a beggar on the roadside. Even the beggars on the roadside could find food to eat and clothes to wear. However, Mo Zhuling's entire mansion was her enemy. Those servant girls who had been bullied and abused by her before, when they saw her in trouble, hurriedly ran over to deal with her. As for the Star Alliance's Alliance Masters faction, they didn't care at all. Mo Zhuling was forced to eat swill and drink urine. He was ordered to crawl on the ground like a dog. Everything that she had done to those maidservants before was now retribution on her. Mo Zhuling could do nothing about it. Because no matter how she called out, the black fog that she had pinned her hopes on never appeared. She didn't know if he would appear again in the future. What would she do if the other party never appeared again? Mo Zhuling could not believe it. Her heart was anxious and hateful, but there was nothing she could do. At this moment, a group of people walked into the room she was in. Miss Star Alliance? Shirahoshi looked at the woman on the opposite bed in surprise. She was like a lunatic. This woman was the miss of the Star Alliance, the one who had a grudge with the people of True Spill Continent? How did she become like this? Was she crazy? If she was crazy, then she would have to find someone else to cooperate with. However, besides Mo Zhuling, there was no one else in the Star Alliance who had such a strong hatred for the people of True Spill Continent. When Bai Xing's voice sounded, Mo Zhuling instantly looked at her with vigilance. He coldly said, "Who are you people?" Her eyes were filled with bone-deep hatred. In the past few days, those maidservants who hated her to the bone would often lead different men to her residence. The mansion she was in was not the residence of the Miss of the Star Alliance. It was clearly a public brothel. As long as others were willing, they could come and kiss her. Chapter 3059. However, after Bai Xing and the others explained their intentions, she suddenly laughed out loud. Haha. You want me to help you deal with the people of True Spill Continent? Just based on my current appearance? Do you think that's possible? Mo Zhuling's voice was filled with mockery. Bai Xing's expression was indifferent. Don't worry about whether or not it's possible. If you can't do it, then we will naturally help you. But to the outside world, all of this is your own doing. After discovering that Mo Zhuling wasn't crazy, Bai Xing immediately relaxed and began to discuss conditions with her. She didn't need Mo Zhuling to do anything, she only needed her name. As long as everything was done in Mo Zhuling's name, what did anything else have to do with them? Haha. Good. Mo Zhuling's heart was filled with hatred. She looked at Bai Xing and the others. She didn't even bother to ask who they were or why they wanted to deal with the people of True Spill Continent. She only needed to know that they had a grudge against True Spill Continent. Haha. The heavens haven't forsaken me yet. Luo Qingtong, Lu Yu, just you wait. Mo Zhuling's expression was ferocious. She had already placed all of her debts on Luo Qingtong and the Lu family. In her opinion, if it weren't for Luo Qingtong stealing her chance to be with Yi Qianxian, how could she have ended up like this? She had abandoned Ji Feiyu and hooked up with the Lu family. Wasn't it all to deal with Luo Qingtong? That slut, if it weren't for her, she wouldn't have ended up like this. Mo Zhuling didn't reflect on her actions. She only thought that she could have had a better life. It was Luo Qingtong and those people from True Spill Continent who had ruined her chance. Moreover, those people from True Spill Continent, those sluts, they were clearly the lowest of the low, and yet they dared to oppose her in the Star Alliance. If that wasn't the case, why would she be looked down upon at the proposal banquet and even be despised by Lu Yu? It's their fault. It's all their fault. And those people from the Lu family, they were all cheese. Mo Zhuling did not believe that Lu Yu hated him just because of what happened at the proposal banquet. She must have casually made up a reason that allowed him to find some sort of treasure in the True Spill Continent. There was actually a treasure in that shabby and lowly place. D**M in it, so that time when she casually threatened that man, she really hit his soft spot. If she knew this would happen, then she would have had the Black Fog attack True Spill Continent from the very start. Mo Zhuling would be filled with regret. She wasn't stupid. After realizing that Lu Yu might have been using her all this time, she immediately realized that Lu Yu and the others were most likely aiming for the True Spill Continent. And the lie that she casually made up might have allowed them to find something in the True Spill Continent. Why did fate always favor that slut Luo Qingtong? If she had discovered this earlier, things would have developed in a different direction. Mo Zhuling's heart was filled with hatred. But in front of Bai Xing and the others, he didn't mention a single word. She wanted to hide this matter. When the time came, she would take the treasure by herself. She would let these people fight to the death with the Lu family and those from True Spill Continent. As Mo Zhuling thought this, he suddenly sneered and agreed to Bai Xing's request. Chapter 3060. Bai Xing and the others didn't care about these things. She didn't put the Lu family in her eyes at all. It was just a family from the 7-star field. They could be destroyed at will. Therefore, he didn't hesitate and agreed to this matter. After Mo Zhuling saw them agree, she immediately sneered. She didn't let Bai Xing and the others immediately deal with the Lu family. Instead, she told them to go back and wait for news. Once they could act, she would naturally tell them. Bai Xing frowned. She didn't know what Mo Zhuling wanted to do. Don't you want to deal with the Lu family? She looked at Mo Zhuling. Of course I want to deal with them, but not now. Mo Zhuling sneered. How could she possibly deal with the Lu family at this time? Lu Yu and the others had just received news about the true Spill continent and hadn't had time to act yet. He was going to wipe them out. Then, would the one who obtained the treasure be Bai Xing and the others, or herself? Moreover, Lu Yu and the others had treated her so badly. How could Mo Zhuling let them die so easily? She wanted them to die with nothing and regret. In Mo Zhuling's heart, she already had an incomparably sinister and ruthless plan. However, she didn't tell Bai Xing and the others. Instead, she found another reason and excuse. You people are so strong, but you don't dare to face the people of the true Spill continent. I naturally have to think about my future. I will deal with the people of the true Spill continent. But the Lu family also has enmity with the people of the true Spill continent. Let them rush to the front. It will be good for you and me. As soon as she said this, Bai Xing and the others immediately felt that there was no problem. After all, Mo Zhuling's idea was correct. With their strength, it was normal for her to have misgivings. However, her thoughts were so thoughtful. How could she have fallen to such a state before? Bai Xing was surprised. Mo Zhuling looked at her with eyes full of hatred. How did she end up in such a state? Naturally, it was because of Luo Qingtong. That bitch. He would never let her off. Mo Zhuling's eyes were cold as he dismissed Bai Xing and the others. When the latter left, he left behind 2 guards of the Chu clan to protect her. At the same time, it was convenient for her to contact him. Mo Zhuling left the 2 Chu clan guards in his room. Then, he left the mansion in a disheveled state. In the Lu family, Lu Yu, Uncle Fong, and the others were discussing how to deal with the people of the true Spill continent and find out the whereabouts of the sector beast. Just then, someone came to report that Mo Zhuling had arrived. Humph, that woman still dares to come here again? Lu Yu sneered. He knew all about what Mo Zhuling had encountered in the mansion, and he was never tired of it. If it weren't for his permission and acquiescence, how could the people of the Star Alliance's Alliance Master and those maids attack Mo Zhuling so recklessly? Now that he heard that Mo Zhuling had come to see him, he couldn't help but feel that it was ridiculous. It seems that she hasn't learned her lesson in the Lu family. Lu Yu sneered. He was about to order the messenger to send Mo Zhuling out again. Just then, the servant said, "Young master, she said that she knows who has the thing you are looking for." Chapter 3061. He looked at Uncle Fong and the others. Uncle Fong and the others didn't think it was possible. However, they were only able to find out about the sector beast with Mo Zhuling's help. Even if she didn't know what they were looking for, she might be able to provide them with some clues that would save them some effort. Also, if they could determine the whereabouts of the sector beast, they would be able to obtain it without anyone knowing. As they thought about this, they said to Lu Yu, "Young master, why don't you meet her? She might be of some use." Lu Yu was thinking the same thing. Seeing that Uncle Fong and the others all agreed, he nodded and said to the person who came to report, "Okay, call her in." He already knew what was going on with the sector beast. If Mo Zhuling still wanted to deceive him or use him, he would let her know what it meant to be worse than death. Mo Zhuling sneered when she was summoned by Lu Yu. She was going to Luo Qingtong, Lu Yu, and the others. She was going to destroy them all. She walked in, not bothering to hide her filth and disgust. She knew that this was the best way to dispel the doubts in Lu Yu and the others' hearts. Otherwise, why would Lu Yu and the others believe her when she suddenly became clean and confident? Her eyes flashed with mockery and viciousness. Then, she followed the gatekeeper and entered the Lu manor. Mo Zhuling, What is it? Just say it. Lu Yu looked at Mo Zhuling indifferently. He didn't even bother to put on an act. Mo Zhuling's appearance was especially disgusting. Looking at his expression, Mo Zhuling sneered in his heart. However, on the surface, she said timidly, "Young master, I know I was wrong. I've really been tortured these days. Please be magnanimous and don't torture me anymore. I am willing to tell you everything I know." "Oh." Lu Yu sneered and looked at her. "What can you tell me?" He wanted to test Mo Zhuling. The latter said without hesitation, "You must be looking for that treasure in the true Spill continent, right? I originally thought that it was just an unremarkable accident. However, I didn't expect that you would really find something there. Lu Yu, you approached me because of that, right?" Mo Zhuling sneered inwardly. Previously, when Lu Yu was with her, he said so many vows of eternal love, but in the end, it was all bullshit. But it didn't matter. She still had to thank them. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known that true Spill continent was actually hiding such great treasures. Mo Zhuling recalled the scene when he saw Luo Qingtong in the true Spill continent. If she guessed correctly, the thing that Lu Yu and the others were looking for was in Luo Qingtong's hands. Even if it wasn't in her hands, it definitely had something to do with her. As she thought of this, she immediately said to Lu Yu, "I don't know what you're looking for. But since you've heard my description, you must have obtained some harvests in the true Spill continent. Then, the owner of that thing should be Luo Qingtong." Of course, even if it wasn't, or if it had nothing to do with Luo Qingtong, she would still make Lu Yu and the others believe that the thing was in Luo Qingtong's hands. Chapter 3062. If you don't believe me, you can ask those people who went to the true Spill continent with me. They should have also seen the phenomenon at that time. It's only because we didn't place such a small low-level continent like the true Spill continent in our eyes that we didn't see the phenomenon. We didn't think that there were any treasures there. Every time Mo Zhuling thought of this, he was filled with endless hatred. But at that time, even if she knew that there were treasures in the true Spill continent, she still wouldn't have been able to do anything to them. Instead, she would have been killed by Yi Qianxian. But later on, if she had been able to wake up and discover something, she would have been able to borrow the power of the black fog to change the current situation. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. She clenched her teeth in her heart, but on the surface she tried to control her emotions. She said, "I admit it. I did lie to you before. I wanted to use the phenomenon to make you believe that the matter at the marriage proposal banquet was caused by the people of the true Spill continent. They were deliberately trying to deal with you. But I didn't think that the phenomenon was actually true. I don't want to defend myself anymore. I only ask that after you obtain this news, you can spare me. I really can't bear it anymore." Mo Zhuling knelt on the ground as he spoke. He constantly sobbed, tears streaming down his face. Looking at his appearance, Lu Yu and the others already believed him. After all, Mo Zhuling's pitiful appearance wasn't something that an average person could bear. He couldn't help but collapse. It was normal for him to come and tell them this news and beg for mercy. Lu Yu's eyes narrowed. He looked at him and coldly said, "As long as what you say is true. Of course I won't let anyone find trouble with you." In fact, Mo Zhuling's miserable state had nothing to do with them. It was just that they didn't do anything. They weren't the ones who had dealt with Mo Zhuling. However, Lu Yu was very happy to see him beg for mercy and provide him with this information. As he thought of this, Mo Zhuling sneered inwardly. Obviously, the Lu family had believed her words. Then let them fight to the death with that bitch Luo Qingtong. This way, she could sit back and reap the benefits. With that thought in mind, she stammered to Lu Yu, "Thank you, young master. I'll take my leave now." Lu Yu waved his hand nonchalantly and let her leave. After she left, Lu Yu looked at Uncle Fong and the others beside him and asked, "What do you all think?" "I think she's telling the truth. Young master, if that thing is really in the hands of that girl called Luo Qingtong, then we have to be prepared. It is said that her background is not simple. the people of the Lu family were not idle in Star City. They had already found out that there seemed to be an expert behind Luo Qingtong. It was the existence of this expert that made the people of the Star Alliance not dare to offend the people of True Spill Continent. They treated them like bodhisattvas. However, they couldn't find out the identity of this expert. The people of the Star Alliance were secretive about this and didn't reveal anything. However, the people of the Lu family didn't think that this so-called expert was very powerful. Otherwise, why would they need the people of the Star Alliance to protect the people of True Spill Continent? Obviously, the strength of the other party was ordinary. They didn't know if he was from the 7-star field or the 6-star field. Moreover, he was a loner with no influence. Chapter 3063. However, what they didn't know was that Yi Qianxian had been invited away by the Heavenly Dark Guard. He didn't have time to arrange anything else. What's more, there were people from the Star Alliance in the 9-star sector. Coupled with the existence of the Heavenly Capital Young Emperor token, it was enough to prevent most people from harming the True Spill Continent. Who would have thought that the Lu family would find traces of the sector beast and track it all the way to the True Spill Continent? When Uncle Fong and the others spoke, Lu Yu nodded and said, "That's right. I'll immediately write a letter and send it back to the family to ask them to send more people." No matter whether the news about the powerhouse was true or not, or how strong the other party was, they had to be prepared. But, Lu Yu sneered. Mo Zhuling came here with selfish motives. I think he wants that girl called Luo Qingtong to have bad luck. I heard that she's not bad looking. Lu Yu raised his eyebrows and looked at Uncle Fong and the others. Uncle Fong and the others understood and said to Lu Yu, "Yes, I heard that the girl called Luo Qingtong is very beautiful." "Young master, you mean, send someone to the True Spill Continent and tell them that I want to take Luo Qingtong as my concubine? Let them think about it." Lu Yu's expression was indifferent. He had always been suspicious of Mo Zhuling's words. However, even if Mo Zhuling hadn't come, he would have thought of starting with Luo Qingtong. After all, she was the actual ruler of the True Spill Continent. As long as he had her in his hands, he would be able to find the whereabouts of the sector beast. And the fastest way to control a woman was to make her his woman. At that time, she would be his, so would the sector beast not be his? This way, it would be simple and confidential. It was much better than directly killing his way to the other side and forcing them to hand over the sector beast. As Lu Yu thought of this, he suddenly smiled. He was confident that Luo Qingtong would agree. After all, being the concubine of the 7-star field's young master was not something an ordinary person could obtain. Luo Qingtong's status was so low that it was already good enough for her to be his concubine. And this was because she had a powerful expert backing her up. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be able to become a concubine. And as Lu Yu's heart was filled with pride, within the True Spill Continent, Luo Qingtong didn't know what was happening in Star City. She was only surprised as she looked at the completely changed True Spill Continent's mortal world in front of her. The places where the 4 sacred dynasties were located were all connected. The original chasm of the 4 dynasties had completely changed, and the territories of the 4 dynasties were now connected. The entire True Spill Continent had been unified. And near the entrance to the True Spill Continent and the Hidden World, an extremely magnificent royal palace appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. The 2 words, Tian Yen, were floating on it. The totem patterns on it were similar to the Luo clan's flag. "Master, this is the Tian Yen Holy Dynasty's royal palace. This is where the old man and the others live. This royal palace was built by the powerhouses of the 4 dynasties and the powerhouses of the Hidden World. They said that they wanted to build the best royal palace for you and the old man." Chapter 3064. Yen Nyang introduced Luo Qingtong with a smile. This palace took less than half a month to complete, but in the entire True Spill Continent, and even in the entire Star Wilderness, it was comparable to the Star Alliance's headquarters. Luo Qingtong listened and smiled. At this moment, in the direction of the palace, a group of soldiers suddenly appeared and flew over. They were about to inspect their carriage and tell them to stay away from here. However, before these soldiers could get close to the carriage, the leader of the soldiers saw Luo Qingtong's face in the carriage. Then, his face instantly flushed with excitement. "It's Her Royal Highness. Quick! Quick! Inform His Majesty that Her Royal Highness has returned. Sound the horn. Ring the bell." His voice was hysterical and almost incoherent. The soldiers who were flying over were also stunned for a moment. Then, they looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with incomparable surprise and trembling. When they saw that familiar face, almost everyone's eyes turned red. Then, they shouted with incomparable excitement, "Her Royal Highness has returned! Her Royal Highness has returned! Her Royal Highness has returned!" The voices of the crowd reverberated in the quiet palace and slowly drifted into the distance. Then, it was as if someone had suddenly pressed a switch in the entire palace territory. In an instant, the entire silent and dark sky lit up with the lights of tens of thousands of homes. Countless soldiers, officers, attendants, and generals all woke up in an instant from the dark and quiet night. In the time it took to take a breath, countless people rushed out from all directions. Everyone looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with excitement. At this moment, in the direction of the palace, the huge bronze door was fiercely pushed open from the inside to the outside with a bang. Then, Grandfather Luo appeared in the sight of Luo Qingtong. Half of his robe was still hanging on his body, and one of his shoes was missing. Qingtong. Seeing the figure in the carriage appear in his sight, and the person in the carriage who made him feel uneasy all this time, thinking of day and night, Grandfather Luo's eyes turned red. He rushed towards Luo Qingtong. He didn't even care about the remaining shoe. He directly lifted his leg and ran towards Luo Qingtong barefooted. Behind him, Empress Dowager Yan Shi also rushed out with tears in her eyes. Qingtong. The two of them rushed towards Luo Qingtong one after another. Luo Qingtong also jumped down from the carriage and greeted them. "Grandfather. Grandmother." Luo Qingtong hugged the two of them. In an instant, tears fell from Grandfather Luo's eyes. "You brat." He wiped his tears and waved his hand, pretending to hit Luo Qingtong's head. "Grandfather was almost worried to death when you were gone for so long. How was it outside? Did you get hurt? Did you suffer? Did you suffer?" Grandfather Luo hugged Luo Qingtong, the tears in his eyes almost falling continuously. It was said that men didn't cry easily, only when they were deeply hurt. Chapter 3065. He had heard from Yan Miang and Su Xiaoxiao that Luo Qingtong had returned safe and sound. But now that he saw his granddaughter in front of him, he couldn't restrain himself. When Luo Qingtong suddenly disappeared, only the heavens knew how much pressure and worry he had felt. If it weren't for his legs being crippled, he would have left the true Spill continent to find Luo Qingtong. Now that he saw her return safe and sound, he was simply overjoyed. Luo Qingtong's heart was slightly bitter. After seeing Grandfather Luo see her return, he didn't ask anything else. He only asked if she was well, if she was hurt, if she was bitter. Her heart was filled with warmth, and her eyes were slightly red. "I'm not bitter. Grandfather, I'm doing very well outside. Look, my strength has increased again." She thought that Grandfather Luo would be happy, but the latter's tears flowed even more fiercely. "Stinky girl, you're always lying. Do you think your grandfather is stupid? Your strength has increased by so much. How could you be doing well outside?" Grandfather Luo's throat choked with sobs. This stinky girl, she only told him the good news and not the bad. Luo Qingtong's expression was helpless. She really didn't feel bitter. Compared to when she was a supreme eye technique master, no one cared about her, and no one worried about her. She was alone all her life, surrounded by enemies everywhere. Now, she was doing very well. However, Luo Qingtong didn't want to argue with her grandfather. Otherwise, her grandfather would fly into a rage out of humiliation. Luo Qingtong coaxed her grandfather. Okay. Grandfather, whatever you say. Come, let's go in. Grandfather, I brought back a lot of good things for you this time, Luo Qingtong said, supporting Grandfather Luo as they walked inside. After crying, Old Master Luo felt embarrassed again. However, he couldn't bear to shake off his granddaughter, so he was immediately supported back by Luo Qingtong with an awkward expression. After they left, an earth-shattering cheer rang out from the top of the forbidden grounds of the royal palace, shaking the heavens. Haha! That's great! Her Highness has returned safely. Long live your Highness! Long live your Highness! Hearing the loud noise, the family Nangong disciples and Suiyu, who came back with Luo Qingtong, were all dumbfounded. They had never seen anyone with such fervent public sentiment and public opinion. Little Seven is so powerful. Suiyu and the others sighed. On the other hand, the disciples of the Nangong nobles were confused. Little Seven? But we just heard them call her Qingtong. They were naturally talking about Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi. Oh, that's Little Seven's real name. Suiyu and the others said carelessly, Little Seven is just her alias. Ah. The disciples of the Nangong nobles were shocked. Then. They stammered, is Miss Little Seven really from the Star Wilderness region, or is she from this low-level continent? Everyone was shocked. They had never thought that the girl, who could call the wind and summon the rain in their Dongting region and fight against Ji Yuankuan and the others, who was also powerful and had a human martial arts realm guard, was actually from a low-level continent. Chapter 3066. While they were still in shock, Luo Qingtong had already entered the palace with Old Master Luo and the others. She dismissed the others and only stood in the main hall with Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi. Then, she smiled mischievously at Old Master Luo and took out the good things in her storage ring. Grandpa, Grandma, look, these are all the good things I got from the outside. Luo Qingtong had gained a lot in the Tianfeng domain this time. Although she didn't get anything in the Tianfeng inscription city because she left in a hurry. Later on, she made a lot of money in Mercenary City and the Abandoned Continent. One of these two places was where people from all walks of life gathered in the Tianfeng domain. There were things of all kinds of star domains, continents, and ranks. There were many things that were suitable for 7, 8, and 9 star domains, and Luo Qingtong had hoarded them. Later on, in the Abandoned Continent, Luo Qingtong got the things that Chu Xiaofeng and the others gave her. Those things could only be owned by the direct descendants of the Tianfeng Chu family. Every one of them was a top-grade resource in a 6-star domain. Not to mention the spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs that Luo Qingtong had taken. However, Luo Qingtong had other uses for those resources, so she didn't take them out. She had already thought about how to arrange those spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs. Moreover, in terms of cultivation resources alone, what she got from Mercenary City and Chu Xiaofeng and the others were enough. After Luo Qingtong took out all those things, Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi were shocked. The two of them thought that the good things that Luo Qingtong said were some resources that she had obtained by chance outside. Originally, they were looking at all of this with smiles. It wasn't easy for their granddaughter to get good things outside. They didn't want Luo Qingtong's things, but since their granddaughter took them out, it was okay to praise her. Old Master Luo's heart ached. He felt that Luo Qingtong was so dangerous outside. She was a little girl, but she was suddenly teleported out. Who knew how many difficulties and hardships she had encountered and how much suffering she had suffered? She even remembered to bring them some good things. Those things might have been exchanged with her life. However, when Luo Qingtong took out all those resources and treasures, they were stunned. Tong tong tong. Old Master Luo couldn't even speak properly. He looked at the things that Luo Qingtong took out. These days, as the main leader of the Celestial Evolution Holy Dynasty, how could he not know the division of the 7th, 8th, and 9th star domain's treasures? However, the items that Luo Qingtong took out were of a much higher level than the items in the 7th, 8th, and 9th star sectors that he knew. Their auras were also much stronger. Oh my God! Old Master Luo stared at the small mountain of items in front of him, his brain almost unable to process them. Oh my God, this is too scary. At this moment, Old Master Luo suppressed all the sadness and heartache he felt when he saw Luo Qingtong. Could it be that this girl had robbed a 6-star region's high-level continent in the outer realm? But that couldn't be right. Which high-level continent's treasury would have such a comprehensive collection of things? Not to mention that some of the items were obviously not something that could be found in a high-level continent's treasury of a 6-star domain. Chapter 3067. Could it be that his granddaughter suddenly disappeared, went on a trip to the outer region, and destroyed a top force above the 6-star region? Old Master Luo wouldn't believe it. What was his granddaughter's strength when she was taken away? No, at that time, she was still in a state of no strength. What was going on? Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi were surprised. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong smiled lightly. She didn't explain too much to Old Master Luo and the others. Speaking of which, it was really too long. What's more, it was very complicated and complicated. Luo Qingtong thought for a long time but didn't know where to start. She didn't want Old Master Luo and the others to worry about her because of what happened in the Tianfeng domain. After all, once she talked about what happened in the Tianfeng domain, she couldn't avoid Yumingxian's pursuit. For the time being, Luo Qingtong didn't want Old Master Luo to worry about these things for her. She was used to fighting alone. She would talk about it after she solved the things over there. Old Master Luo was right about one thing. Luo Qingtong was a person who only reported the good news and not the bad. She had long been used to bearing hardships and dangers alone. And there was nothing wrong with that. It wasn't that she didn't believe in Old Master Luo and the others, nor that she thought they were too weak. It was that she had been alone for too long. Except for Yi Qianxian, who intervened in her life because of his powerful strength and forcibly integrated into her life, she couldn't refuse and could only adapt. As for the others, she didn't know how to fight together with them. She had always been alone. She could build a force, but it was too difficult for her to have a sense of teamwork and comradeship. She wasn't that kind of person at all. Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi were also very considerate. Although they were very surprised and shocked by the origin of these things, they didn't ask if Luo Qingtong didn't want to talk about it. Luo Qingtong had suffered enough outside. They didn't want their questions to bring back those bad memories. While Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi were shocked, Luo Qingtong smiled mysteriously and took out the 1,000 silkworm thread she obtained from the abandoned continent. She waved it in front of Old Master Luo and said with a smile, "Grandpa, do you know about this? It can heal your leg. In the future, your legs will be the same as other people's. They won't be a burden to you anymore. Not only that, it doesn't need any recovery period." No matter how good the elixir was, even if it could restore Grandfather Luo's legs to their original state and allow him to receive the infusion of power, he still had to start cultivating from the beginning to the end. The strength of his legs would always be more or less different from the other parts of his body. This kind of difference was almost impossible to eliminate. Even though Luo Qingtong temporarily adjusted the strength of Luo's legs to be similar to the rest of his body, Luo Qingtong still couldn't control the strength of his legs. However, as one continued to improve and advance in cultivation, the difference in strength would still appear. But it was different with the 1,000 silkworm thread. The 1,000 silkworm thread would adjust its tenacity and hardness according to Grandfather Luo's strength. Chapter 3068. He stared blankly at the threads in Luo Qingtong's hands, while Empress Dowager Yan Shi's face was also filled with indescribable excitement. "Qingtong, is what you said true? Your grandfather's legs, Are really, her words were trembling, and her entire voice was trembling. Ever since Grandfather Luo's legs were crippled, he could still walk freely. But Empress Dowager Yen she knew that he could no longer cultivate to improve his strength. Or rather, no matter how hard he cultivated, there was still such an obstacle and hidden danger left behind. It was a huge blow to him. Sometimes, she often saw him standing alone on the city wall, looking at the soldiers in front of him with a face full of envy. Every time this happened, her heart would be especially painful. This man had been in the military all his life, and fighting was almost his instinct and all his meaning in life. But now, he had returned to his prime, but he could almost no longer fight and cultivate. What kind of blow was this to him? But every time she couldn't help feeling sad and distressed, he would comfort her in turn, saying that this was also very good. At least he had enough time to accompany her to make up for the regret of not being able to be together before. But when Empress Dowager Yen she heard these words, she felt even more sad. Because even if he could cultivate and fight, it wouldn't hinder their relationship. Grandfather Luo said this clearly because he didn't want her to feel distressed and sad. Hearing Luo Qingtong say that Grandfather Luo's legs could be saved, and at the same time, his tenacity and strength were no different from before, she almost cried with joy. Old Master Luo's lips were trembling violently. He looked at Luo Qingtong and wanted to confirm with Luo Qingtong several times, but he didn't have enough courage. Instead, it was Empress Dowager Yen she who spoke. After Empress Dowager Yen she spoke, Luo Qingtong immediately smiled and nodded, "Yes, grandmother, it's true. But I still need some time before I can treat grandfather." After all, her blood-red eyes hadn't fully recovered yet. In the face of Grandfather Luo's legs, Luo Qingtong naturally didn't want to be negligent at all. "Yes, okay." Empress Dowager Yen she immediately responded with a trembling voice. A period of time was a period of time. They had waited for so long, this little bit of time didn't make a difference. As she said this, she immediately wanted to ask Luo Qingtong how long it would take, but she heard Luo Qingtong think for a moment and say to them, "About 7 days." Empress Dowager Yen she and Grandfather Luo didn't know what to say. Was this the period of time? What was 7 days? A period. They thought it would take a year or something. From the sound of it, 7 days wasn't a big deal at all. The two of them were very excited. And Grandfather Luo Qingtong, Yen Shi, S, Luo Qingtong's grandfather Yan's. "Oh, by the way, Grandpa, Grandma, here are a few stalks of sky luo grass. Grandma's portion, you can take it now. But grandfather's, wait until I heal your legs, then take it." Luo Qingtong told the two of them, "In addition to the 2 that you've taken, find a few absolutely loyal people to take the rest. If there are no candidates for the time being, then leave it first." Chapter 3069. Oh, old Master Luo took the Tian Luo grass in a daze. He looked at the few stalks of spiritual herbs that had a very strong aura. It was obvious that they were not ordinary spiritual herbs. He asked in a daze, "Tong Tong, what are these spiritual herbs for?" Luo Qingtong was rummaging through the demonic weapons she got from the Een Demon King in her storage ring to see if there was anything suitable for old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yen Shi. She could erase the demonic qi inside and give it to them. She said without raising her head, "Oh, it's the Tian Luo grass from the core of the continent. It's one of the great Tao spiritual objects. After you two take it, you'll immediately get the Tian Luo body and enter the Zun realm." Pfft. Old Master Luo had already put away the Tian Luo grass and was sitting on a chair and drinking tea to calm himself down. After all, the shock and surprise he received today was a little too big. However, when Luo Qingtong said that, he spat out the tea in his mouth. Fortunately, Empress Dowager Yen she dodged in time. Otherwise, she would have been sprayed all over. Old Master Luo didn't have time to apologize to his wife. He just stared at Luo Qingtong with wide eyes and said in shock, "Tian Luo. Tian Luo grass? Great Tao spiritual object? Old Master Luo wondered if he had heard wrongly. Tian Luo grass, Great Tao spiritual object. This wasn't just a name Luo Qingtong said casually or deliberately. In fact, it wasn't an ordinary Tian Luo grass. It was a real heaven and earth spiritual object. Didn't you hear what Luo Qingtong said? It could immediately get the Tian Luo body. Not only that, its strength could directly enter the Zun realm. Luo Qingtong gave him such a heaven and earth spiritual object so casually. Old Master Luo clutched his chest that was suffocated from shock and kept thinking. How many Tian Luo grass did Luo Qingtong just give him? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no, I can't count anymore. Elder Luo rubbed his dizzy head and quickly took out the sky Luo grass from his storage ring and counted them again. 6. He cried out in shock. So many. When he spoke, Luo Qingtong's voice casually sounded. Yes, Grandpa, take it first. If it's not enough, I have more here. However, it's best if you choose those who are strong and talented. Only then can you maximize the benefits. Although this Tian Luo grass can instantly raise one's strength to the exalted realm, that person's strength has to be close to the exalted realm. Otherwise, I'll still need some time to improve. Also, I have to leave some for Su Yu and the others. Although Su Yu and the others might not be able to use it. Thinking about how Su Yu and the others were sold to the Qin family of highest heaven by the people of the Dark Colors Arena, Luo Qingtong's face turned cold. She had to deal with the matter here as soon as possible and go find them. Otherwise, who knew what would happen to them over there? The people of the Dark Colors Arena were simply damned. Luo Qingtong had almost turned the group of people of the Dark Colors Arena into ashes, but she still couldn't vent her anger. Chapter 3070. His own granddaughter actually had more. Luo Qingtong spoke of such a heavenly treasure as if it were cabbage. Grandfather Luo's heart was tangled. He originally thought that these heavenly treasures were too precious and that he couldn't take so many of them. It would be better to let Luo Qingtong take them back for other purposes. But before he could even open his mouth, his granddaughter had given him a critical blow. Since his granddaughter still had more, he would take them. As Grandfather Luo thought this, he stretched out half of his hand to return some of the heavenly grass to Luo Qingtong. But at this time, Luo Qingtong dropped another heavy bomb on them. That's right, Grandfather, I came back this time to upgrade the true Spill continent. I obtained the core of a high-grade continent and am preparing to upgrade the true Spill continent to a high-grade continent. At that time, this place will be able to produce immortal spirit energy. That is the high-grade core of an abandoned continent. But because of some reasons, it regained its vitality. The core strength, the power of the Great Tao, and the immortal spirit energy are completely ownerless. They can perfectly fit into the core of our true Spill continent. At that time, I may need to go into seclusion for a period of time. Also, after the true Spill continent is upgraded, I am preparing to connect it with the Little Doe's boundary. Then, you can go in and cultivate whenever you want. Inside, I have placed, Luo Qingtong spoke of her plans. Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi were both stunned. As they listened to Luo Qingtong's words, they felt as if they were in a dream. Upgrade the true Spill continent to a high-grade continent. It was unknown how many years it would take for a continent to evolve and upgrade. And for a low-grade continent like the true Spill continent, it was impossible for it to be upgraded to a high-grade continent. But this law had been broken in front of Luo Qingtong. Not only that, but Luo Qingtong had upgraded it to a high-grade continent. There was no need for it to be upgraded to a medium-grade continent. And the core of an abandoned continent that regained its vitality, what did his granddaughter do when she went out? How could she obtain such a thing? And she could bring it back perfectly? Oh my God. Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi had been together for so many years that they could be considered experienced and knowledgeable. But after Luo Qingtong went out and came back, everything she did shocked them. They didn't pay attention to what Luo Qingtong said about the connection between the true Spill continent and the boundary. They only nodded in a daze. Luo Qingtong felt very helpless as she watched. It seemed that the bombs she had dropped this time were a little too big. Her grandparents couldn't take it anymore. Forget it, I'll tell them about the rest when I have the chance in the future, in case they can't get over it. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she immediately hid the demonic weapon, the Dongting region, and Chu Tiany's identity from Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi. She didn't even mention Sui Yu's group or the people sent by the Nangong family. Of Luo's with that in mind, Luo Qingtong went to rest. Chapter 3071. At the same time, in Star City, the people of the Lu family had also rushed over after receiving the news from Lu Yu. The group of elders and strong cultivators of the Lu family quietly entered the mansion of the Lu family without alerting anyone. Are you sure the sector beast is in the hands of the girl named Luo Qingtong? An elder of the Lu family asked in a deep voice. He was at the 5th level of the human martial realm. In the Lu family, he was one of the masters second only to the head of the family. He was very powerful. This time, almost all the people who were at the same level as him had come to the Star Wilderness. The news of the sector beast was very precious. They didn't want to miss any opportunity this time. Therefore, except for the head of the family, all the elders and elites were sent out. At the same time, in the Star Wilderness, a large number of people of the Lu family were stationed on a remote abandoned continent next to Star City. They were waiting for the news to be confirmed before making a move. As soon as he spoke, Lu Yu's voice was heard. Not yet, but there is an 80% chance it is her. As he said this, he immediately told them what Mo Zhuling had said and the information they had found. Even if it isn't her, it definitely has something to do with her. Moreover, through her identity, we can easily find out who has the sector beast. Lu Yu said. In fact, he didn't completely believe Mo Zhuling. But Luo Qingtong was indeed the best breakthrough. No matter whether she had the sector beast or not, she was the actual ruler of the true Spill continent. Hearing his words, all the elders of the Lu family nodded and said in a deep voice, yes, this girl named Luo Qingtong is indeed the best breakthrough. However, even so, young master, your decision to take her as a concubine was a bit too hasty. A girl from such a low-level continent, even if her status is slightly higher than people from other low-level continents, is still a low-level person. If you marry into our Lu family, it will inevitably stain our bloodline. The elder of the Lu family who spoke first said. They knew that Lu Yu had said that he wanted to marry Mo Zhuling. However, that was just a casual remark. It wasn't like he was serious about marrying her. As for this Luo Qingtong, if he wanted to get the whereabouts of the sector beast out of her, he would have to marry her for real. At that time, the Lu family would have a stain on their reputation. The elder of the Lu family was extremely unwilling. In his opinion, a lowly person from a low-level continent did not even have the qualifications to be their maidservant. Not to mention marrying Lu Yu as a concubine. When he spoke, the elders of the Lu family all nodded in agreement. According to their thoughts, since they knew that there were indeed sector beasts in the true Spill continent, then they might as well kill their way in. Whether or not anyone obtained the sector beasts, all they had to do was force them to hand it over. If someone had formed a contract with him, he would just have to kill the other party. That Luo Qingtong might be backed by a 6-star field or a 7-star field's individual practitioner. If possible, I don't want to use force to settle this. The most important thing is that we are too big of a target. If someone notices what we are doing and finds out about the existence of sector beasts, we will be in big trouble. Lu Yu said. She is just a concubine. If you don't like her, you can just deal with her after you get the sector beast. Lu Yu didn't think much of it. She was just a girl from a low-level continent. A girl like Mo Zhuling from the Star Alliance, he would just throw her away after using her. He would just have to deal with her in the same way. He could even have a taste of her, you're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.